You good? Cool. Is everyone good? Alright. Advantage 1 is deterrence. The Arctic is the soft underbelly of American military operations globally, but status quo on your investment and logistics threats to embolden adversaries greenlanding unchecked aggression. Heisman 25. U.S. must balance resources to the Arctic underinvested in 1970. Key role in to close support Taiwan, strategic negotiation, make Alaska global logistics where hold the Alaska hold the world investment away. U.S. for the Middle East, Georgia knows NSR taking gas and investing research China, and measurement releasing the Arctic strategy interest significantly engaged logistical challenge posed by isolation and exacerbated by lack of adequate transportation resupply. Infrastructure is aging. U.S. must prioritize infrastructure adaptable to challenging conditions, ensuring long-term security, integrating logistics from peacetime ops to conflict scenarios, and lack of robust infrastructure encourages twin adversary probing from Russia and China until 25. Dramatic increase from Russia and China and then joint naval forces at the time and we shall start looking at more infrastructure. We have time to need more infrastructure, not just defensive, but also power protection standpoint. America's leaders out of scientific research, we are seeing infrastructure presence because of perceived weakness and specifically it spurs to theater war across Europe and the Indo-Pacific. Federal logistics is a unique deterrent. Heisman 24. 2. Theater necessary for rapid marine dynasty to compel to reevaluate its data processing regarding the already expansion in the Arctic, China, and Taiwan, U.S. Cover 2 ocean spending the China and U.S. in the Red Sea, but still just report determinant of the victory significant frequency. Underestimate for giving a person the infrastructure challenges, temperature fluctuating dramatically, transportation, deflation, imitating communication in remote areas, Alaska significance is paramount. Given the proximity of valuable locations with the velocity potential for rapid logistical support and tensions are high, especially post-Ukraine. Alaska is the heart of conflict escalation. Boiling 25. The agreement to the collapse of rest of Western Russia, cooperation, strengthening the resolution with China over 10 years, skill increased navies near the ocean, raising the coins of relevant to individual claim Alaska leaders use similar language in Ukraine. A co-op not likely to be fully realized until the end of the war. Conflict increases over military missile project and Russia's invasion of Crimea. The site of the military activity on Alaska will be the heart and center, and Russia and the Russian probing in the Arctic causes extinction deterrence is key. Wolters 22. Russian nuclear arsenal actually concerned to strike quality for such use in nuclear conflict wars, policy counter repository influence great activities most maintain SY. Atomic wars with the sovereign nation. Russia continues to modernize and destabilizing electronic ASW. Counter space and average must remain for disability commerce. Russian code use development and unorthodox order benefit all U.S. almost meeting credible deterrence and specific miscalculation escalates nuclear war led by 24. Indo-Pacific program miscalculation attempted by the artificial the divine capability and researchers not know BLS contain missiles warships creating powerful escalation pressures capacity with little warning produce uncertainty escalatory on the offensive nature and the new offer nuclear war make use and then creating escalation and specifically centralize the logistics deterrence and invasion of Taiwan prior 24. Likelihood of conflict over Taiwan could increase U.S. military logistics to enforce all invasion China MS and A280 motor weapons create the need for logistical dispersal and demanding for decentralization army aims to deliver calibrated force through 3 lines Avis clear current China's A280 Charles UD ability to protect U.S. increased forward presence at logistical planet employers and World War II and result in underestimating ships and vessels requiring to support ops. China changes the strategic situation in the game-changing weapons and the goal to continue the U.S. should invest in logistical capabilities to ensure Chinese and nuclear war. Con 24. Beijing won an accident from catching for wartime on the agent several times to China's policy made on unification unacceptable every candidate at the top. There's often Xi and China showed that Xi on the turning against unification. The U.S. continues the place for plans for the further delegation was miscalculation only rather single choice. So the difference between nuclear and nuclear devastation and extinction Eastern 23. Taiwan flash when unstable HCCP and island 103 federal force authoritarian is ready checked on the road going on Guam the risk where it's invited to Philippines Korea SES and the trigger session across the world of return to also blocks and watching other prices to check Skywalker surge and native protection of breaking American alliances on nuclear arms resisting battles in World War III climb civilization knocked Japan and Motor West, swung in authoritarian directions, Korea will go nuclear in North Korea, both take over and you expand nuclear Australia with fear circle, develop nuclear armaments and NATO, embrace Beijing fatally fracture, and independently robust logistical security, effective sustainment, colon 25. Army in the complex environment, logistically requiring innovation, approaches the logistics, anti-space sustainment needs more, robustly supply chains, and shift from reactive to proactive, shift from maintaining up to moving, code environments, wall, training up to all traditional logics folder, anticipating failure goes nuclear, locus, cost 24. American mission to deploy the forwards, providing nuclear engagement, sustaining the logging land dominance, convince confront unique challenge demands, reduce the dispersion during logistics opposite and limit duration that can operate uniquely devastating commercial less in a fight if just apparent U.S. conventional ops and much of training is probably co-operated just poorly supervised and pure ownership to train to operate in the nuclear environment willingness to authorize escalation Ukraine with NATO relies failure to adapt at the level at the risk of nuclear escalation and the plan is key upgrading logistical infrastructure in the Arctic towards adversarial aggression. High 24. Use protections all use facility rapid and the rapid the response to security defense Alaska carried sea minus including tripping water energy wastewater investment and logistics imperative for navigating emerging challenges must be maintained for those on involved delayed actually the forces of the point under condition and capabilities open the door for construction computers alleged leveraging logistics offers unique avenue for particular power we must not wait in American alleged unlocks both of them cooperation over deterrence Scott skill 24. American forces on the strength of coordination logical offering deterrence the U.S. has 5 MTD agreements with the agreements with Korea Taiwan agreements with partners working to the other to ensure availability in Russia and China are revisionist Popescu 25. In nuclear, on the nuclear GBW, leader competition, nuclear wars, limiting and preparing for one investment in conventional capabilities, diplomacy, zero sum interaction, the common US and China, Africa, our offensive realist providers, striver for Germany, on the revisionist emissions, German military imperatives, on the Washington needs to adapt to China and Russia, back to our prediction that the great power increases on the war, on the military bill, with China doing velocity to deny military diplomacy by 827 space and the surpass US, it ships and ICB, militarization of disputed future the SS China starting on the economic areas, BRI increasing like investment in the military, like the current army arms, and to establish a by forcing the national or China or Ukraine to define how to advance interest in therefore the planning Mexican government should significantly increase its development of logistical infrastructure in the Arctic. Advantage 2 is logistical lack of logistical capacity in the federal entities to render response to human security crisis. Insufficient upgrading Arctic infrastructure is key. Takes out 3. Federal entities lack infrastructure in the other areas. U.S. permits search and rescue and local clear when the U.S. have capabilities for the it's severity to more rescue. U.S. lack of ability to respond in conditions will result in the loss of life, environmental integrity without access. U.S. participate only in limited exercise in the U.S. However, more Arctic specific capabilities to inform the network legislation point to enable contingent response. This is the inclusion of Alaska to provide value for partners, and it's key to effective coast guard operation that maintains freedom of navigation and sustainable fish stocks globally. Rate 18. The U.S. for most maritime vessels and the committed declared that the priority of Russia is NSR for commercial opportunities are favorable conditions and pose a danger and increase in the demand for nuclear coast guard food security significant bearing provides fish Alaska rank 7 for the one in the Arctic Ocean increasing risk of migration to pollution illegal unregulated fishing challenge with likelihood to drawn has a choke point military sharing the emerging Bering Strait is strategic operation advanced coast guard shooting goals and all logistical diplomacy missions and effective freedom navigation solves extinction thing 22. To maintain attending the world under stress of the robust mechanisms and imperative to becoming a future human counter this key response to government policies escalation and extra challenges but climate change economic levels are under threat by churches spreading fisheries down the debilitating acidification the rise in every set of transit on ships on the security only be possible the collective approach that comes from nations seeking reshape order taking claims to the comments in the fishery decline causes global resource wars and escalates existing hotspots. Spikers 20. Common government marking global fish wars on the ice on the trolley US and to the international species like you turtle speech of militarizing maritime SOI and the fish's key on the overlooked to stabilize and would common cunning wars and buddy security challenge of ocean governments are causing fishery resistance affecting reproduce very explaining the common to the fishery color with the international common to the university of hard foraging obligation maritime security to where the channel of security international responsibility severe condition cover massive food and police stable fish stocks are enable recovery from otherwise catch the nuclear winters. Share 20. Nuclear weapons authority demanding the personal going to the consortium and the threat levels of the crop of even limited conflict to increase the conversion by 11% for tons the highest level of fishery related to integrated enhanced extreme food crisis, short ratio allow catch to become higher than critical times for our food security and civil military logistics infrastructure is key. Program 19. Greatest concern to lack of infrastructure terrorists are monitoring search and rescue all norms available of serious college deficit in our infrastructure projects and non-existing safety and disaster and harsh energy response to goal and monitoring critical safety investigation navigation eventually response critical to operation current report civil military operation upward to the alarm material developing military mechanisms for emergency responses and only the Coast Guard can serve as a fulcrum between agencies maritime and industry and international regulations guarantees effectiveness. Pink is 22. Coast Guard planning to agree the insurance of this fulcrum between the DHS leverage of the measures of those with the state entities provide security and maritime industry unique national tool of our restriction will come to the weather for defining roles we sort of with the Coast Guard control in China which was the all free reign the US needs Swiss Army to cheap durable useful the ability to maintain perform missions. Mark credit missions.
You good?
Yeah.
Taiwan, what is the scenario for US drawing?
There's I think 2. The first is China attacks because they're revisionist, and the second is
hold on. Not my question. Agree that China attacks. What is the scenario for the US being drawn in?
Yeah, there are 2 scenarios for this. One is that we would say that because Taiwan knows, and because China knows that we cannot deter them currently, because military logistical infrastructure, like a lack of those capabilities, we would get drawn in because China knows that we would never be able to respond.
Hold on, a lack of deterrence means that China invades, not that the U.S. responds.
I think there's 2 ways this goes nuclear. It's the con and Eastern card. The Eastern card is far better. When you go for Taiwan, we're good. It says that when Taiwan falls, it causes all of our allies to freak out. It causes China to probe elsewhere in the Pacific.
Felix, this is not even close to my question. I asked, why does the U.S. get drawn in?
Sure, that's one way. When China invades other countries, the U.S. must never respond, especially allies like Japan.
Why?
Because we have security commitments to them.
No, we don't.
Because eventually China
will be encroaching. No security commitments necessarily to Taiwan. Nothing binding.
No, I'm talking other countries. This
other
is
countries.
If
China
must, China invades Taiwan.
Hold on. In order for this to go nuclear, China must not only invade Taiwan, but also our allies the Philippines, South Korea, Japan.
One scenario. I think that's far better versus Taiwan. We're good, but the con card also just says we would miscalculate. It talks about how every president
we would miscalculate.
We would escalate. It talks about how every president has historically been tough on China. Specifically, Trump has been tough on China.
Freedom of navigation.
Yeah.
Same card is tagged FON solves extinction. Card doesn't say extinction, nuclear war, or any war. What is the scenario for extinction?
I think it's just escalation broadly.
Escalation broadly.
The Concord talks about like protecting against like gunboat diplomacy from Russia and China, and more of like the miscalculation.
Wait, hold on. This also just does say existential challenges. Like,
you want to read that line? Tackling the emerging existential challenge posed by climate change are also intrinsic to ensuring maritime security.
Change, the economy, piracy.
No, it doesn't cite climate change. It says we need to solve climate change to solve maritime security.
Disagree. I think that the card is making the argument that effective freedom of navigation solves conflicts on the high seas because of things like
what's gunboat diplomacy?
It's a country like gunboat diplomacy historically is when the United States basically forced Japan to open up their economy to the rest of the world. We think that in the modern context, countries are becoming aggressive with their navies, trying to enforce protectionist policies internationally.
Fisheries, rayless interlinks like pollution, illegal growth, and unregulated fishing. How does the Coast Guard solve that in areas outside of the U.S. Arctic?
We'll make the argument that the Arctic is a massive fish.
No, the Arctic is key, but the U.S. doesn't own all of the Arctic.
Yeah,
or does the Coast Guard have jurisdiction?
Okay, we think the Coast Guard can stop illegal fishing in the Arctic.
No, not all the Arctic.
Hold on, the scenario is about the Bering Strait, which holds like half of the key fish.
1 and C sent. Orders 8, 1, 2.
There you go.
Let me know whenever it's ready.
Cool.
Felix, Asha, are we ready?
Yeah, good.
Yeah. I'll start in a few seconds unless someone stops.
First off, stability that the United States federal government should rescind funding for the Golden Dome, advancing American detection technology, and strategic stability that constant arms race in Russia first recognized for use in lose suppression nuclear war. Got 19 Russia figures, government superiority, advancing capabilities to survive. U.S. secure survivability, nuclear forces U.S. were able to track the nuclear stops and extend the Russia figures. Even more responding to destabilizing West degradation, survivability, cause Russia to compensate vulnerability, suppression, continue, advances in precision track media, and let more double down, reduce a large number of nuclear supply demand, arms race miscount more likely Russia. When George pursuing next off steam minerals development is an activity related to the exploitation of resources, exploration refers to any activity related to the identification or violation of resource deposits, U.S. Code 90, development, standing activity flowing exploration, exploitation, and resource deposits, include process source, transport, exploration, standing activity, person, identification, validation, resource deposits, include excavation, determination of size deposits, and feasibility of development, vote neg for limits ground, funding HCF, and related sectors that slow neg research burdens, itself is the Russian politics, this Putin's regime is stable now, but on the wing, that's not a crowd for other similar Russian regime, appears stable when Putin's party a year ago, early in the Russian right, Russian right, where Moscow and Russia airport, domestic contract, trigger, public abolition, but on the wing, of the last Russian out of control, so device of his dream, regime U.S. leadership cause status now in the Arctic classing, which is really, I want to go here, Moscow has really started nationalism, legitimization, part against its structure, celebrate fisheries, remarkable growth, but Moscow ensures the Arctic counter, we're getting domestic for recruiting in the face internal threats, Russia, actions for the Arctic to vote for authoritarian regime, in order for Putin to stay part of the Russian people to lead, the Russian example can be that's the narrative that Arctic, as the secretary of with power of Russia British central to upholding this belief, regime instability causes nuclear war, that is what Putin started making to solve, in the circle of structure power has the greatest distance will be, institutional structure to Russia, political structure, food, access, and the departure of leadership Putin before south the line, of a secession could lead to civil conflict over power struggle, stabilize Russia versus internal conflict, and there's a civil situation could have significant repercussions to stability, affect global market supply chains, and national security, power struggle, we both separate purposes of nation, given Russian nuclear arsenal, currently stability, trigger, security crisis, will affect the U.S. situation, and broader international. Next up is the Alaska Council of the States of Alaska should abolish this balance requirement, and make the United States develop and defense, coast guard, and relevant agencies to increase development of logistical infrastructure in the Alaskan Arctic and finance the above with tax exempt bonds and leases to military. Alaska finances the entire plan. Go for 70 to defend Alaska by defending strategic military location. Alaska can put up reliability of facility plus army, living air force, coast guard bases, Alaska capitals, reliability of facilities, and military financing with taxes and bonds, and lease military council global investment and improvement. Research in artists, Alaska has financial muscle, active regionalism, and key to broader governance extinction. $21. We need to think the Arctic is a mature wallet. Reflect on the Arctic Ocean's regional space. America will achieve international agreement to balance competition, structure, good challenges, because human the AFAC, up to deter relative fiction because the impact, price was the neighborhoods of place, treasure, fisheries, no place, remote nuclear action, and ice without found it, public events and nuclear subspace, human view, able to move through the ice, the action, trip, all this general nuclear ship, running, magic story, the Arctic ships, providing a couple of those, river blocks, the member with the required international cooperation, next on the shutdown, to the United
United States government should not pass any restrictions and not invoke any presidential authority under the Empowerment Control Act and hire 1,300 people to join the CISA. And pass a continued resolution under the federal government increases employment of logistics and infrastructure restaurant and tax comply with the obligation under commercial approved law, no shutdown law shipment. Some Congress will shut down Congress to take things to the regular voting. Shut down her Democrats with the Republican Trump today. Federal workers because the Lord Jeff did the policy. Federal workers to negotiate off so shut down current Trump to restore. It's not first Democrats that shut down with the case of the okay with the claim Democrats what against this year for shut down the plan initiates the special section that the sense of chaos ensures GOP role. Just as 72 trust the House should call it or the Republican Democrats was evidence for the release. But it's the air to take the speech to shut down for student comes. And Trump just early says it come there with anything going like this with speaker. Just gets to take a serious suspended that we let sabotage hard. No shut down worse than some people for loss of higher personnel already in terminal government. Ability to trust equal attached to orderly Congress. So we're going to be a full legislation last we go work for Trump now. Run a vicious sense for action of troubling extinction or all that. Good more than power to reach electricity companies for separate systems. But accident to start war with the ministry so that can actually quit for unless you're horror for security come order for the special. There's actually the tip of accident parents so when this lease attacks already occurring. 650 million attempts to reduce the system Russia. General Park to have class the Western Ukraine. Rely on the action to take action between will sabotage. Energy mix and US to the battlefield to step up that in accidents with family resolving the economic terminal. Russia number 2 will human to extreme large scale act Ukraine. Attack was something that you can starting to shift over. So it gets US Russia North Korea offering weapons in defense next office Canada the government Canada should offer reduce it. The United States to increase logistical infrastructure the Arctic and increase logistical infrastructure the Arctic itself and re-makes Canadian independence successfully. With the American relation number 1 the left territory joining the country north. German resident watching responding with how it is in the independence here. Free running defense that's more Saga emergency to effect. Canadian independence standing with US allies Canada will lead in power. Get parts of the country commercial capacity, leader in substance middle capacity. A brutal option even with military models extinction 2018. We're big running strength Canada the leaders break out. The middle of our war war through the terror summer. The best food migration to climb. By the way, I think the words to break that kind of strength the influence creation is the 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 government's tribute foreign policy. Next up is the potential of the U.S. Federation condition ban on nuclear evidence in the Russian Federation. Chinese Communist Party doing the same and withdraw its declaration of the Arctic and early established policy. Number occasion military conflict in Taiwan and Pennsylvania cover policy. Number use nuclear forces in Taiwan and increase funding and preparation of the U.S. Coast Guard install zero escalation without U.S. involvement. The funding crystallizes Coast Guard. The Calabas Arms Control assault. Direction to give its use for coordination mechanism states. Impartially system of visibility through accusation states. Regularly with these key factors are supposed to be made friends. Introducing civilizations comply with arms control essential. This is interesting because key does not hostility to be as an emergency treaty arms control. It's all effects as an agreement. Increase the pushes to factors in full desirable arms control. Next off the rationality. The one I see friends the Arctic is an objective no states for Western judgment. The objective has to go and the Arctic really noble. Nations activity for granting supposed to nations. Propagation posted by non-Cuban state. Because your doctrine was constantly working hard to achievable the way. Retain away to a survey sense. Experts stabilize stabilization actions for rational critique outcomes. About the card outcomes that cause extinction and ends value to lack out. Notify industry still come aggressive against that all. Technically the good best problems technology thinking because only for the thing you will appreciate by law restriction can make humanity great. Domination over destruction versus civility ethical relation great. Results in enhanced well-being reality. The objective by manner disturbing the balance tech. There's more natural degradation everything reduced it. Sending reserve for inflation was induced with wide and quality of a mag for an ecology infinity degrees. Reporting replication the Arctic exists matter of becoming homely. Owners and sexual team use the intent for prohibited. Was only mentioned Arctic mortality. When thinking about the global century historical countries made the Earth the global nationalist institution or something. But we think different us about geological wonder. Mark the card at wonder. Go to advantage 1. Time when division fails and causes disease be telling. But not be well fair for infrastructure easy good loss. We want us to send the British and US and close pocket Chinese citizens opponent. Military strength of food and water money activity will all see protection. Class of the global population will no reaching very harder. The extended question has set our own money follow. What difficulty this will harbor had informational. Public control continue to reinforce the pressure. They set the opposite by the POH and extending possible numbers. Coordinated culture to discourage initiation or critical access military culture psychological. No matter Chinese evidence against the crisis global crisis stage. Regime will see CCP glass up so the that's fair. With the US supplies for CCP defeated without connect more from its strategy to CCP members. Security and chaos in terms of the crisis and probably will have to have crisis with study Russia. Could you well send the next outcome the Hong Kong Tama. Keywords of tradition to see for US. Result that Russia resolve places party under pressure. Extinction welfare to the United States extinction about the field of disaster more likely to have mutual wars. Let's government republic crystallization and distance and active reform. Next extinction likely release and the release to have here. Or let's cooperate illustrates for civilians. Agreement for release and commission to equality offensive power. Or after Russia consider about locking future act. Agreement to GS is this and let's revolutionary showers. But that was the extinction of destruction of human act. With that destruction of humanity potential to Russia's defensive real as balance by nuclear. Once you were going to return to defense restriction still late escalating the acid. That used to nukes team dash authority more significant reserves. That's a vaccination or such with unused this last resort. It was something accidental without fashion and emerging technology challenge. Pursuits of companies secure environment camera and safeguard interest 3 cancel on miscount compliance worse extended capacity increases ambiguity insert 1AC11 that's they're highlighting biological dialogue chats no one launches the nuke without certainty for squad sauce sustainment 1AC balance biological sustainment obviously sustainment by supply chain here IOD solution interest means orange biology cross version of capabilities Now 5, there are stars about land. The dominance has not the app. Insert 1 is Lusaka 24, 6, no Arctic War, 6 4, we should shoot that. How does cover defend Arctic conflict not predicted? Every factor not producing action, increase that slightly more growth. Number should be research, could be action, if our show. Similarly to shares to trees, not trying to change. Move station could be UK reduce the lab conflict Arctic archers. Every non competition will be every factor support on accident. In the region, consider underlying cooperation Arctic stable. Advantage to 1, no phone off, the only impact rivalry. No reason it escalates, cause any conflict where it goes nuclear, which is cross sex, 2, no fisheries. There are internal links about Arctic residents, all inserted in yellow, impacts about Indo-Pacific, no internal link, fish wars are high. Basically, not committed to a relationship between a conflict and time. A fish can versus the conflict fish like this. Similar to the same stuff to the North Sea. Typical. Imagine scenario with fish force that's like industry invading and drilling safety now. 60 regular industry safety offshore operation. Industry launch companies and offshore safety rush. No never implement improvements for operation and integration. It's not scalable national scale commission pace. I'm just saying offshore drilling is safer than ever.
Good?
Yeah.
Cool. Status?
Status goes over logical option.
Alright. Advantage kind of plan and the Unix kind of plan. Can you kick planks?
Yes.
Let's go to the shutdown they said.
Yeah.
Just to be clear, the plank, or no, I think this might be on a different counter plan, but the plank about banning the plan to pass the continuing resolution, is this the text? Like did you said you were going to send out a text?
I sent out a new 1 and C with the amended text.
Yeah.
Alright, cool. Let's go to the strategic ability they said.
Yeah.
Is the link to perception?
The link, well,
no, it's the capabilities.
It's.
I mean, obviously capabilities are perceived, but the link is to.
Okay, so we need to actually have the capacity to detect their subs, right?
Not necessarily. The argument is that increasing our base capacity in places like the Bering Strait directly threatens Russian first strike or second strike capabilities. Because
Okay,
that's,
why?
Because that's directly where missiles would fly over from Russia to the U.S. So it would increase the capability for BMD to be placed there, ASW to be placed there, and everything else that is required for second strike to be up.
Okay, so you've said that capabilities are perceived. The Golden Dome is happening right now. Why wouldn't that thump that?
Because 1, it hasn't been funded yet. 2, the counterplan would publicly rescind.
Yeah, but you said the capabilities are perceived.
I said nothing has been created for the Golden Dome.
It's about the creation of those capabilities.
Let's go to the Russia politics. Just said.
Yeah.
Yap has this line about Putin dying being really bad for the regime. Why doesn't this just make the design inevitable?
So we think that Putin slowly dying from illnesses would probably lead to a more peaceful transition than if he is suddenly overthrown by a bunch of illnesses.
Wait, but your Yap card
There's a huge time frame differential. Yap talks about a sudden death. That's the most important part of the line. Well, it says that if Putin was to suddenly be killed by some elites, like someone assassinates him,
I agree.
If he slowly dies from an illness,
but your card also indicates that because of the lack of democratic institutions in Russia, that transition of power, even if Putin dies of illness, is still going to be very violent.
The card isn't about death and illness. It's about a sudden overthrow.
No, I disagree. I think this card explicitly says...
And also, he's probably dying in 20, 30 years. We would rather live 20, 30 years than die from a sudden nuclear war. This is a pretty... Like, we think that if he were to slowly die from an illness, elites would realize that and have a transition plan. But if he were to suddenly be overthrown, there would be no such plan.
That's good. Let's go to the counter plan.
Yeah. What counter plan are we talking about?
The advantage counter plan.
Okay.
Okay. So the only way we don't get into a Taiwan war is just because we don't enforce our security commitments, right?
Well, 1, we think that current security commitments aren't binding or force us to actually intervene. It's only something.
No, that's yes or no. That's how we avert the war, right?
That is one way. And the other thing is that the U.S. would never use a nuke. So U.S. can get drawn in. They might blockade.
Can they get drawn in anywhere else in the South China Sea or in that region?
No.
So we just completely bail on the South China Sea, that region broadly?
No. They won't get drawn in. The counterplan just fiats Taiwan.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
8.
Cool.
Alright.
Okay, stop prep. 12 seconds.
7:48.
Can I have to stand?
Yeah.
Is everyone good from order? Okay, it's deterrence, logistics, minerals, the Canada counterplan, the Alaska counterplan, the Advantage counterplan and then the Alaska counterplan. The shutdown DSAD.
Yeah.
The StratStab DSAD. Or sorry, the K above the StratStab DSAD. The stability DSAD. Did everyone get it?
I don't have the doctrine though.
Let me.
Okay. I got it. I'm good for memory.
I just got it. Give me like 1 second. Now I'm good.
Okay. You good?
Yeah.
Okay. If anyone's not ready, just stop. Grayson probing the electromagnetic ASAS and counter space nuclear enemy reactions for scores or policies and nuclear launches. Walter Suisi one time of war is bad. China wars against nuclear threat. Took forth the American nuclear much more capture war, which is pushing towards the Indian special Germany can indicate religion again because I see China's expanding arsenal market arsenal she uses invasion and recovery to bolster legitimacy so that solves the trans sentiment. 24 she's choices programs was some music academies well to China consider LGBT people back ladies everything she need to ask the world to Asian person religion as a central market essential now even if they win they feel they will win that they feel the CCP will bounce back. It's resilient. That was the best you have. Now 2AC2 both China and Russia are revisionist as proven by economic and military policy rhetoric and past and very excessive to you dropped all words to the card. Now 2AC3 is wrong. 11 highlighted to nothing. It does not increase the miscalculation. It checks its running through China because China and Russia is revisionist, which is the root cause. Now 2AC4 was a logistics solve. It's status quo solve is wrong. Status quo cannot solve. One is Arctic. This is just about logistics in the Indian Pacific. 2 is Alaska. It's key. Strategic location geography make it important for the SES and Arctic 3 others. Now 2C5 was ES Arctic War 1 is miscalculated and hyper and nuclear 2 is capabilities, strong abilities, hypersonics and new aces capability green like that's Walters. Now we go to logistics. Drop the oil spills impact. That means that a charred eye flipped off species collapse from oil spills causes resource scarcity and disease in the Arctic. That escalates forces to resource security and conflicts over land. Now, 2AC1 was remobilization. It solves only protecting its gun of a diplomacy Russia and China solved. That was the 1AC cross climbing. That was right now. 2AC2 yes, fish impact. 1 is SES triggers for your governance of resources into its speed. Flashlights for best lights and tensions escalate. Now it does not solve the impact because we've isolated that the Bering Sea is specifically key to providing half of the fish T minerals. One-way meat cleanses in a vacuum only injects stasis and prevents visual competition independently, but development, exploration, including logistical support were inserted and created. The Coast Guard is indirectly utilized to overcome transportation shortfalls, specifically the causes of oil races. So that was a work. Now development includes military activity. Alaska, tension to Arctic focus, it includes media reception, needs development, area designated as a military facility. It's exclusively federal king. 19 specific means you have an extra conservative reserve owns. Federal action for development includes providing our license to 14 federal license is and include less than to the late involved and before it run after our military and grantees robust good key and signal key deficits. Particularly our evidence has intent to define inside statutes 3 is converted to all incentivize development or exploration not mandated. 4 special limits, other words case politics and impactors. 5 is reasonability prevents substance ground out not obeying an issue. We just don't force to read this. Alaska counterplay. 1 to boost shields because it's 1 new boost shields because it's seen as follow 1. 2 Alaska play it fails. A is coordination failure. Federal action is key to international logistics only. You find capabilities to follow on view. Deterrence and agreements. Scotland is there for reference means authority. Alaska has no jurisdiction over federal military installations. Now, only DoD facilities can survive harsh weather. It was into the department seas. Funding only the federal government can do it. ACA, is only coordinated activity in which interest effective logistical operations and the Coast Guard is necessary to sign a unique symbol on ISS. Pink is now the 3 to the counterplan rejecting on use to if the yacht has new resolution basis. Land aliens politics see as a cooperation. Now the net benefit is wrong. A is all causes Alaska's economy is collapsing. Another investment outweigh these uniqueness. Their evidence is about domestic narrative. C is no impact. No case impacts disprove the cooperation. The Canada counterplan. 1 do both. It's seen as follow. 2 can't solve. Geography. Canada has no legal jurisdiction over Alaska. C is cross apply all things. Solvency deficits from Alaska. Now only U.S. led diplomatic commitments. It's a credible signal. Moral causing to be because in the article people and more focused languages. Artificial lower U.S. diplomatic market vacancy now. 3 is the kind of plan. If 4 is rejected international fiat, it has no resolution to resist, justifying infinite complex international estates. 5 is the planning capital and other issues, sexual and physical decision. Is get out and objectivity. 6 is no internal. It is no impact, no for extinction. B is all cost candidates. In the Arctic now, Canadian military power is leadership is outdated data. And then he can never say the lowers a middle part of the middle range which is that they was the versus. I mean, it's a country that with international logic that is a mega major like special plus 17. Other questions will look well now. See the plans also creates American multi-lateral trends, which is better. Now, inducement fails. Trump says no. Solomon it took again over just to realize that he says religion was over. Over. Go to the advantage capital. 1 is the plan and inequality of the place. 1 our specification was despite the reciprocal conditionality. 2 you both 3 countermoves without subtlety of a rating issue. 4 can't solve deterrence. Classify all the Alaska differences. Plank 1 doesn't solve versus nuclear arsenal and disabling using gray zone activities. As Walter 2 reinforces China's A2AD capabilities as prior. 3 they say no Russia and China are probing in over business. Now 2 the second plate fails. 1 freeze exploration causes extinction. 2 triggers a case invites Russian aggression. That was above. Now for middle plan and all other development shields the link. Since Russia secures a massive gain. Now now the Cobra policy is wrong. They would lash out, which was above. Now fun Coast Guard is wrong. Either results in building infrastructure or fails. That was things that no arms control was Chinese modernization inevitable there. To do so, the word is disabling now shutdown is that. Or decay.
Yeah.
1 is firm, 1 is the concept of the plan for resistance of an alternatively make a links. Anything else is 1 is increase infinite links for 2 firmly with either over 1 the link and also is 2 for turn calculation goes and is 14 will not be separate infinite responsibility. It would be similar to when it's starting when it comes to work in the organization because of the responsibility. Every simple stability of calculate the thought marker, calculate the thought force, no link, it's not consequential. No link, we don't run out the Arctic and Noble by no impact on the make a risk closure. So it wasn't for rating any of there was a major word which are for society, but it's on my own never used to go being how to being loses if this never has anyone power, market power. 6 Tiger was a Nazi rejected team. 7 all fails it's unworkable. If they had a proactive it's better. It doesn't have USFG now. Shutdown is that. Political plan and pass the CR. Same master tests are best for reciprocity and logic. Turn both, but fails. Can't solve for internals and logistics with this key. Now shutdown will happen now. Bolton 7 to 1 because it's here. We're just had a different chapter and it was such a everything about it. Unhappy market, unhappy now. It's done past shutdowns and OPP prove impact will never be triggered. No link. The plan Rochelle is fun and Coast Guard, non-military performance partner, and we're going to defeat conflict permanent no one has PBs that within process was PBAs, Mario PBAs, 2 plan happens at Congress 3 can be play fiat is the least restrictive means. Now it doesn't assume an abnormal process without strong evidence. 3 should encompass future action plan. 8 which is multi future consider results of future evidence. No internal link process of app. It's about the Epstein files already halting legislation. PC is fake, it's infinite. No one can affect. This is politics, but we just look at we'll change, market change. No impact contingency plan solved. This should be a catches for later for leavers as a resource for reading along with a condition plan. Now the straps episode. Unique discount camera per new both for discount plan linkage perception based unique and unique discount with the treaty, which is a voting issue, which is a voting issue. Ability is low. China architecture strategy UK and Russia fights to reclaim Alaska cruise missile RCA apps Russian modernization and China A2AD capabilities proof. That was Heisenberg, Berlin, and Sullivan all inserted for weapons. Boiled up in threats now. Threats now. To right Russian because it happened to in China because it needs to in Moscow major with Moscow take advanced market advances, structurally impossible to arms control. That was above on the advantage comment. Extinction to turn all skin. Key to the purpose of the warm people market invisible to Russia transmission and Misgala and probing that was all the revisionism offense and deterrent solves. That was a solve with evidence, but infrastructure solves motion public includes the probing those. Heisenberg, but no link cartoon is about a plan just missile defense. Feasibility side. After turns Arctic War makes Putin look weak and losing an Arctic is beyond thumb internal improvements that was inserted for reference. Now he's resilient on structural practice for them. Support his reality with no structural regimes are robust. Robust now. Now there's no other factor. Arctic not keep a legitimacy. One other factor that keep Ukraine economy, culture, as an outweigh and public to declare Almer 25 national not because of everything murder ineffective market ineffective. The links done by appropriations. No impact relative to the version to Russia but because COVID is not totally when major version of the culture every central fabric is not unraveling. Market unraveling.
You're good across?
Yes.
Okay. Cool. I want to start on the Canada counterplan.
Yeah.
So you said U.S. diplomatic commitments are key.
Yeah.
If Trump's saying no to Canada's inducements and negotiations, what makes him a good diplomatic leader?
Well, yeah, 2 things. We would say that it's about like American hegemony, like broadly, one isolation.
It's about
leader.
hegemony broadly. Then I'm wondering why the United
one
States,
isolationist
like
leader
federal
is not
government,
enough for the like say yes argument. Now, the Murkowski card is specifically talking about the U.S. as an Arctic nation and being able to lead in the in
as an
terms
Arctic
of the
nation.
The
That's
Trump says no stuff is just about him like structurally disliking Canada and current trade agreements.
all right, fine. If it's about if it's about America as an Arctic nation, I guess what federal agencies or what parts of the government is sending that signal if Trump is not doing that effectively?
Kind of confused about this question. We would say like the United States federal government broadly as a branch.
Like Trump has fired thousands of people in the State Department. What
Yeah.
makes
I think the Murkowski card like isolates that diplomacy within like the U.S. ambassador at large for Arctic affairs at the State
Trump
Department.
fired
like,
him, and
the
this card is from
Department
2022,
the
but that's
Department
fine.
of State, the like being able to sort of like send a signal to the Arctic Council specifically.
Yeah, that's fine. I want to go to Advantage 1. So
Yes.
you listed miscalculation as a scenario for nuclear conflict.
Yes.
How does the plan prevent Russia from miscalculating perceiving capabilities and launching a nuke at us?
Well, yeah, two things. One, we would say that the Perpetu evidence is citing that like miscalculation only happens because they're revisionist and perceive that they can have this
Wait.
second strike.
Where does that card talk about
That
miscalculation?
Yeah, the Perpetu evidence is about like economic and military policy broadly, which we would think includes
Okay,
miscalculation.
so I get that they're aggressive. How does a plan prevents them from misperceiving?
Yes.
Like,
if the plan ensures like deterrence through nukes, then they would perceive that they have no second strike capabilities, which means that they would have like no incentive to like miscalc in their first place or even like perceive threats as the U.S. and not want to backlash against.
okay,
said
so a
threats.
few bridges from Alaska is going to make Russia think that
Yes.
they can't launch a
Yes.
missile. Okay, that's fine. I want to go to the shutdown this ad.
Yeah.
The Link Defense Car Fiorentino, it talks about agencies getting some flexibility after appropriations. So what fund does the AF draw from since appropriations haven't even passed?
Well, sure. I think the Fiorentino evidence is just talking broadly about being able to appropriate funds. I don't think we have to specify agencies, but it says that like, some like related programs, projects, or activities related to the affirmative, there would be some specific agency that could.
I want to talk about those related programs. Republican senators have called for gutting the entire Coast Guard. Where do you get the money from if the entire department has nearly been shut down?
I think that we don't necessarily have to define that, but probably
You
yeah,
don't?
is the
Okay, that makes the normal means, but that's fine. Yeah.
$7.15, 2 NC cent.
Cool.
That is 10.
Yeah.
Thanks. Alright. The order is the Alaska counterplan, the Advantage counterplan, deterrence, logistics.
Alaska counterplan and North.
Alaska Advantage counterplan, deterrence, logistics. Alright. Are you ready?
Let me download this.
Sounds good.
What is this? I'm good.
Wait, I don't know why mine is not open.
All good.
Okay, I'm good.
Great.
The counterplan
lays waste to their deficits and pays relevant executive agencies until they implement the plan. Use sufficiency deficits need impact structure. It's a logical extension of conduct. Do both links. It includes the plan's funding requiring congressional appropriations denied. One of our shielding arguments blocks the system rely on too easy mistakes, group coordination, and authority. The too easy enter the wrong counterplan. Alaska induces federal action resulting in Coast Guard action. Completely dropped. No news say no arguments. Now no funding. Alaska can afford military facilities with taxes and bonds and leases to the military. That's Crawford. At worst, the counterplan removes the Alaska's balanced budget amendments so the deficits spend if cash trapped. They also never had a funding. DA so fiat solves now. No more warrants. One Alaska Permanent Fund, right? 17 Alaska Permanent Fund valued at $61 billion. Constitutional budget reserve and $3.5 billion to public-private partnerships. Idea. Noted idea. Has many tools available to development PPP. And Alaska's high priority for development. Military provides capital for military vessel back. By developers, no signal deficits if agencies comply. The outcome is identical. Plus, signal has no impact. There's 8 minutes to the 1EC detailing my action, not process. The app is going to solve their impacts. Plus, the deficit only exists if trade-related organizations are extremely powerful. Which you sort of reference, which Trump already got it, so it's terminally thumb. Now they're doing the counterplan severance as the voter for fairness because it does not include the USFG. Now the counter we get to fiat one state. It's fully reciprocal. Both the federal government and government of Alaska have one executive, one ground. Alaska provides a functional limit against a litany of tiny resource-based affirmatives that seem related to arbitrariness. Their theory into black supply line and crowds that substance conceded recently from T3 testing and it evaluates federal key, which is a robust debate in the literature. That's key to education, which is debates sole value for deficits. We only allow one state. Resource asymmetries between one state and USFG are massive, given they say no funding and signaling deficits. Now, they say it links to politics. It doesn't. One, funding is supplied by the states, not Congress. That means there's zero special session that's ever required. Two, signal wrong. How Trump is perceived as irrelevant because our link is not about political capital. Now, Arctic regionalism outweighs the drought, triad eye. It caps all conflict, fisheries, subs, acidification, and plaques, spread and extinction, decentralized global governance. Allow states to seize their unique position and cooperate. That's thought. It solves the case. U.S.-Russia escalation is impossible with state dialogue and infrastructure. Failure is eradicated by state pressure. No all causes. 2AC defense with the internal is word salad. All causes are wrong. Alaska's economy is not even close to collapse. All cards about funding proves rebound. Other investments are not about Alaska. Now, yes, impact cooperation with adversaries is welcome, but not necessary. Global governance can be done with other Arctic nations. Advantage counterplan. The counterplan solves the case of withdrawals U.S. involvement in the Arctic, capping miscalculating grace zones that solves the impact to arms race and induces Russia and China to engage in demilitarization over nuclear technology with skills back revisionist weapons in the Arctic. Continue to over no new answers. One instance mobiles into future agreements which creates arms control global yet shard also prevents escalation in Taiwan because the U.S. never gets drawn in or miscalculates. Do combo fails. Counterplan bans development which is mutually inclusive. Use offense defense. Now same for do both. And no solvency advocates are good. Key to net ground and it's arbitrary at worst. I am the solvency advocate. Alaska deficits don't apply. Withdrawal means there is no scenario for miscalculation. Say yes. Offensive realism is irrelevant, sure. There's an empirical analysis. Russia and China might be evil, but they're not stupid. Treaties during the Cold War proved revisionists want clarity and simplicity in arms control, which the counterplan offers. Freeze exploration does not cause extinction, but development definitely does. Perm other instances of fully intrinsic, no text, strike it, adds, accept, and carve out. So it doesn't solve because it includes logistics, so it links to the term yes, arms control thereof is quote descriptive, or counterplan revitalizes it, which is the whole point, and they'll say yes, no, lash out, China's not suicidal, US cannot get drawn in, so covert, it's covert solves, fund Coast Guard solves it, they'll implement infrastructure, their evidence just says they lack funding, which the counterplan provides. Deterrence advantage. Democracy outweighs magnitude of totalitarian sophisticated checks. Unleashing climate change, AI, miscalculation that goes nuclear. That's well-filled. All drop. Terminal is 100. So try or die is decisively neg. Not going to be new cards for the 1 year. It's not getting now. Defense will be below economics. Now they say the nationalism turn that the CCP will be more legitimate as a result of invasion. Economics are the background of legitimacy. Invasion. Shadows the CCP dash 25 Pentagon turning toward confidence fight. Demonstration of how much unique and amount of niche makes a target for CCP. Legitimacy rests on the robust economy repercussion of invasion. Shadow invasion investing power sold on unviable important semiconductor impact and trade through the Taiwan trade to sustain growth. Yes, key to CCP legitimacy. 24 economic security, framework, stability, development. This thing national security, economics, the foundation of national strength, is borders, just survival implications for China's geopolitical position and economic national security hard to separate into for development. CCP role in regime stability. This is just the countermeasure for more flexibility, minimize the cost, bounce back, it's wrong, collapse, unites global movements and ensures peaceful transition. Who's to 23 military coup, and civil war crisis. She faces the leaders on the mind. Easier to attack Beijing than the Australia. She's afraid of personnel attacking his people following, and it's worried about particularly uprising China's democratic movement and unanimously support democratic Taiwan mature enough to be on nationalist and Berlin Wall movement. Establishing the ability to democracy, liberty, and justice, and incorporating Taiwan into China forces political transition. Michelle, 17 innovation required to invite aggressive Chinese nationalism and Indo-Pacific like to respond to isolation, restraint, potential for CPC leadership and their models, legitimacy standards, innovation would end the nationalism, economic expense, welfare nationalism, standards followed continuous improvements, lead to political backlash, triggering economic crisis at borders, possess Taiwan and commitment and open societies mainly China. Support 20 million important implication for politics. Assume he becomes more cautious for 24 officers teach GS about Senate problems. Great and central struggling economy and regime loss award David public enthusiasm for more cautious over 23 lower tensions with US and causes. Sino-American cooperation, otherwise great power competition is inevitable. Cooper 21 Sino-American conditions Chinese official from the US and undermining the regime contrast between China government making a possible relation bloody US power making it closer to the century seems to be serious on borders. The accommodation for coercive behavior self introverted the US from persist longest the governance by the CCP party illusions Chinese power fundamental change of regime US China competition guarantees nuclear escalation decimates global response to the climate change fixation Caroline 23 competition towards China undivided new nuclear silence and future awarding nuclear bombs and creates a view of the 100 years civilization friend nuclear arms to find the climate crisis economies work together healthy competition to suffer attack on healthy device war and destructive climate agreements global collapse ensures US primacy Wilkie 21 there's fatalism in his Western thought of China the American Jew China's not invincible fast approaching and democratic climate change no idea how to manage US just say the focus of the collapse of modernization of massive problems agreeing that environmental waste caused by security restless under restorative surrounded by nations Chinese aggression and imperialism US leadership saves the economy reestablishes democracy and restores relations with Taiwan 25 CCP faces structural change growth declining growth rate exception housing market unemployment corruption religion and FDI the unthinkable aftermath of collapse stabilize US as we recapitulate and liberalize the architecture and integration of global markets as allows for democracy and constitutional relationship would change that answers all the warrants above around regime stability which we see not already card don't hold them to their Jewish warrants because everything else will be new now invasion fails one landing is nearly impossible beaches are continually reinforced and the PLS military is incompetent true politics invasion is highly unpopular and drains China's economy war can't be sustained and definitely won't go nuclear that's how TY does not say that US gets drawn in just assumes that it happens and says that would be escalatory if that were to happen plus arms chasing counterplan no nuclear use check sides cross proves there's no scenario for escalation that was the money see Trump won't come to Taiwan's defense Robertson 25 China's claim to Taiwan is approach is not complicated by Taiwan coming to defense Trump doesn't care China does democracy and Trump's foreign policy on the rest of the commitment to Trump display shows China does country China starter to fulfill defense spending even if we defend Taiwan it won't escalate human 24 China definitely will take Taiwan by force otherwise have time to completely large invaders campaign and if you coastlines in face of fierce resistance unpopular China's politically risky for leaders escalation will be small and contained small economic wars now 23 years expect low intensity economic conflict peaceful coexistence not cooperative when possible America's turns on want to be dominated with cooperative history sustainable goal now Russia is defensive they won't use first unless or provoke by conventional strikes or threats by the plan internal doctrines and participation and start first nukes to turn on attack the 2C revision this debating was really bad they did not give any warrants just listed a few empirics about Georgia and Ukraine that does not prove the Russian authoritative in the Arctic north of the escalation only the expansion troops escalation the school showed like fine and often 24 Russia's Arctic influenced by the Taiwan court by the sense of vulnerability historical traumas for neighbors and aggression and dating by single charges security threat NATO the development of security's balance no Indo-Pacific miscalc this is hedge bad not hedge good it says US encouragement is escalatory in the plan gives more and the expansion which sure China's fake response as one to say level plus bilateral dialogue is inevitable and checks mode whatever use a nuke unless they're sure no sustainment scenario it lacks uniqueness the logistics are filled by SCRM IUD problems private collaboration that solves this one to see Collins private sector solves now Fox 25 escalated tends to create logistical growing demand for mobilization infrastructure unsecured the broader trend of pedagogy on like the diminished backbone the military infrastructure they said is assuming the Arctic no Arctic war where Ukraine calls conflict due to escalation fears in US Russia overstretch cooperation is more likely because trade is proved that's V-check study signing studies there evidence just Arctic just says that they'll miscalculate but not a reason why they would ever use nukes
Different costs.
yeah
Let's start first on the advantage counterplan, the say yes debate. There are Chinese doctrines that say that there is literally zero room for Taiwan. What evidence assumes that we can covertly pull out while they will not lash out?
So the former does not indicate the latter to me. Even if China wants Taiwan so badly, they don't want a war with the US. So there's no reason why they would lash out at the US just to draw themselves into a broader nuclear war when they don't have to.
Wait, hold on. They perceive weakened US presence in Taiwan. Why would they not lash out? I'm still confused.
Lash out in
They've
Taiwan,
said that they
which
still
is good.
want Taiwan.
They want Taiwan, which is good. The counterplan does not solve Taiwan invasion. Taiwan invasion good is a net benefit to the counterplan.
So yeah, let's talk about this. How does it solve miscalc broadly if it only covertly withdraws
Because
from Taiwan?
your scenario was that the US miscalculates as a result of Taiwan invasion. Otherwise, China has no military involvement with the US because they won't get involved. The whole point is that if China does not know that the US will refuse to use nukes in the future, there's no reason why other allies in the region would get scared.
Wait,
The
so
only
they
scenario
know
for
that
conflict
they-
is
they-
China
they know
first
that
striking the US, which
does
is
not
obviously
have
unlikely.
nukes in the future. I'm confused why this doesn't implicate first use.
Why do you think? Okay, this scenario is incoherent. If the U.S. doesn't involve themselves, China would never involve the U.S. because China wants
let's
Taiwan.
talk
They don't
about-
want war with the U.S.
Okay, makes sense. The Alaska counterplan. How does Alaska deficit spend?
They abolished their balanced budget amendments.
How?
they just do. Like, it's fiat mandated the counterplan. There is an amendment that restricts them from
Okay.
from deficit spending. The counterplan gets rid of that.
Yeah. Why would agencies follow on and say yes?
One, the 2AC did not make a say no argument, and we made one in the 1AC. Two is that we think that Arctic collaboration when it's totally paid for by Alaska is incredibly easy. The DoD wants to upgrade their military and their logistical infrastructure like they always do, and that's why military spending happens all the time. The issue is that spending is unpopular, so Alaska financing the whole thing would circumvent that.
Wait, hold on. It says that if agencies comply, the outcome is identical. Confused how small agencies can replicate the same exact signal.
It's not a small
as the broad
agency.
United
It's
States
the
federal
Coast
government.
Guard and the DoD. Those are very big agencies. The
So
ones
you
that
fiat the
your
Coast
plan
Guard
has
and
caused for
DoD
solvency.
follow on to
We don't
the
fiat anything, but the 2AC did not make a say no
fiat
argument.
anything?
We don't we don't fiat anything at the federal government level. We fiat Alaska finances the plan, and then those agencies, the DoD and the Coast Guard, follow on.
Let's go to the Taiwan turn. The Gilly 25 is about democratization broadly. Where does he get to a warrant about authoritarians not being able to stop authoritarians?
I did not read Gilly because the 2AC did not contest the democracy impact.
I disagree. The nationalism turn, the answers the Wong card is specifically about this professor from
You have sent. You want me to get the case?
Mm-hmm.
It's gonna be advantage 2, and then I'll get the rest of the order.
wait, actually prep.
Sure.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, stop prep 15 seconds.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, so advantage 2.
All right. Then the Heidegger K, the Canada counterplan, Russian politics, and shutdown.
10-15.
Russia politics and then what?
No.
10-15.
Wait, Canada,
Yeah.
Heidegger, Canada, Russia. That's it.
Yes.
Okay.
Heidegger. 10-15.
Y'all didn't say condo, right?
Sorry?
Y'all didn't say condo.
Actually, that's a great question.
Great.
Is it on it?
I did not.
Just making sure.
I forgot.
I did not.
Yeah.
I was just making sure. Always good to check.
All right. Everyone good?
Let me download it.
Cool.
Wait, me too.
You good?
Yes.
Cool. I'll start in a few seconds. I'll answer this. Phone ops. There's not an impact outline with 1AC card. The best thing says that there's piracy and terrorists in the rise. There's not a scenario of conflict, even terrorists. Launch a nuke. They won't go global or implicate every regional actor. Now, no fish sources, no internally. The internally evidence says that fish shortages in Alaska and the U.S., not in the Pacific. Countries turn away from conflict, the hunger, poverty, after war. No study supports this. It's been held for decades. That's PSA. Now, oil spills. They didn't read it in the 1AC, but the 1AC still preempted it. It's inevitable globally, and we'll ask us. Heidegger conceive framework and firm takes out the voting issue because it's not a resolution theory, which their interpretation agrees is bad regardless. Our author criticizes Heidegger's original theology in favor of a new, non-anthropocentric reading, which means takes out the link. Now, Canada can see the permutation theorist reason to reject the argument on team. Anything else is arbitrary to stick around because only the rules to screw the app. Trump says no to Canada doesn't apply to Alaska because it's about agencies, but does take out a deficit because you cannot send a signal. Russian politics and sea numbers can't be applied to shutdown because it's not a special section. Now, shutdown proper grid failure outweighs. Not to do cyber attack. Classes of power grid treating water shortages, supply chain breakdowns, financial paralysis, backside fails. Social order disintegrates and nuclear command becomes unstable amid crisis escalation. That's why occurs. What advantages? Once it's turned, cyber attacks, hammer operation of military infrastructure. So they're all digitalized. Troops can't deter Russia or China if they can't use their weapons. That shuts down readiness and recruitment. Both are all causes of shutdown. 23. Repetition of application shutdown feeds into restricting narrative. A shutdown is associated with conflicts and trades. Once they occur, tragic tragedies, sell China. Russia capitalist intervention shutdown is facing a change. One more across the global attention is diverted from the national priorities. Weapons. System like training Smith's costs are incurred. These rituals will become a shutdown. It's a spiritual failure damaging American security and economy. Second is the logistics. The Coast Guard cannot effectively operate because they rely on digital communications. Now, bring defense to top numbers and contingency plans don't assume the current Doge cuts, which impair cybersecurity, because staffs are on the brink right now. It's not true in the context of this administration, where it will uniquely class unity, and so contingency plans will not happen in this primary community for threat actions. Record after more CSA, just before our cover of succession activities, trigger major, combat critical technology service exchange, reflect technical activities, emergency death, not necessarily prime opportunities for threat action screens, numbers to demonstrate system, regardless they drop the terminal, which means that they can't implicate it. Now, 2AC1, the kind of fiats we need it as fast as well, unless the plan passes to both lanes.
links that include the plan to EC2. Passing the bill absent the exception is intrinsic. There's no text, so you should strike it because you assume it's fully intrinsic. It makes passage certain, which adds a function because it removes explicit exception for the plan in the counter. That's bad. Counter curve function alone from gaming two exchange words for counter with via add-ons that are disads logic, sap span the plan. Distorting opportunity cost. Next round, turn net metrics are key. There's no disad on this topic. Defense, one other person check, two deficits. Certainly delay. Say no, etc. Check next round. Three theory check for example. The link cruises the trick. Reject this. Deletes all ground because any disad can be compensated. Politics score and from the education in case they try to cross by theory. I am the solvency advocate. Anything else arbitrary. Two, the counter severus and mandates plan voted for AFCON. No, 2EC3, the bill will pass. One pressure. Democrats face political trap with KCR for the streets putting up his GOP cars. Return to shutdown, they come down. Two, so the past premier shows Congress late. Even the Trump's longest shutdown ended under pressure. Three, workforce forcing unpaid work. And then post-church layoffs. Seymour as a spare shaft in the party. Once long-term fall that's determined their cards from July and sets a few Democrats. Which doesn't assume new support, no shutdown for Seven to do the first to be determined when shutdown because of option call. Democrats will also make delicious signal the future president. They actually have a chance in the House government spending requests for majority. House Republicans right they have the same beyond criminal country series. The Senate, especially 50 votes to the 20 deadline. Democrats saying they will without assurance tell Mr. Hubble, but he's still going to page opposite level. Actually, ensure they have the government open, no shutdown assurance. So to determine open civil and effective shutdown Democrats are you got the funding negotiating opportunity for warnings and callbacks. Democratic appropriation filling up. Most important things to move appropriation is really fine. A partisan agreement shut down on top of appropriators set. Now, so the link is stored in Johnson already shut down House procedure. Block absolutely related amendments and fiat forces the special section that revokes some chaos international spotlight publicly. Secular GOP chaos such as Trump George Republican. Wait for him to save face for the election that's Garcia. House recess medical corrupt BC summer. So to do the House become the 9th police struggle. There's actually a law which is many absent in the House, which were early in the attempt to vote to release all capital ever the moment with the chance to vote. The only nation that caused more anger. No record file Republican Patricia Trump not who released spouses. They were antagonizing Trump's now. They say the plan is not immediate. It must be immediate. One ground. Delay fiat and all times since the dissent. Unless the app clarify what happens indefinitely after the future. Two limits guarantees. Has to print his app conditionality and Rex next strategy. Fiat means Congress. That's why they shift restriction. That's more means. Let's just 24 two times legislative regular special. Let's just time session of creating money to deal with the specific issues or topic. Now, fiat shouldn't allow the app to bypass traditional procedure. They get to say fiat false against workers and argue. That's already versus cross family severe and reciprocal. And it's several short. That's our 70. I ordered to come making sure it's hitting also several resolve. Once the true resolve is an earnest decision. Evenly lose special section. The plans list. Shutdowns falls in the Senate anyway. The plans is sudden nature. Shocks the Senate cover. It also the release about negotiation with the go progress. Close to the family cost savings winning well. Reach agreements doing without a cost to the family happy. Working since every day. Now, no exec shields, they link regardless. Trump's a unitary executive and public decision get blame on him funding. The budget or expiration across Congress control. Since the Congress for required funding for defense security, government also for made under jurisdiction shop. As under otherwise insufficient funds, the squad, zero policy for Doge. The Coast Guard British should be no more. So actually go to a budget by 90% that's completely acceptable. No to 21 million for sphere. When the Coast Guard's offshore infrastructure now resolve requires legislation instrument. LSA, five legislation introduced for city policy or resolution use. The term resolved, they so topic hundreds of areas of energy, ocean, and military. That restriction preparators and other mistakes today. This doubles as a T violation, independent to an R, rejected, and to for specifications voting issue nor means plans are similar to delete this after arbitrary self-serving plans. Fiorentino is about appropriations which didn't pass, which means that they cannot solve the case if they don't use Congress PC if it doesn't matter to the status of our purchase or not PC. So links regardless.
7:30.
Cool. Try. Nice videos.
are 2 docks.
2 docks.
Yeah.
2 separate docks. Okay.
But mine is just 1 card.
Okay. Sounds good. Are they sent?
See, I'm uploading it right now.
I got the Alaska dock. Cool.
Alright.
Alright, I got both docks.
Yeah.
I'm good whenever.
Alright. We'll do the other.
First is stats. Is orders, advantage 1, deterrence, advantage 2, logistics. Do you want to do Alaska first? Alaska
Yeah. Advantage Alaska.
Advantage Alaska, shut down.
Alright, I'm good.
I'll tell you what.
Actually, put advantage 2 first. Just this will be easier to flow.
Sounds good.
So advantage 2, advantage 1, just to be clear.
Yep.
Alright, everyone good?
Yep.
Advantage 2, we're not going for it. They have no offense here. Go to advantage 1. Trump Eastern causes China to invade, which linked towards the democracy impact because if they win the war, they will keep invading. Revisionism means this is structurally true. The words are wrong. Econ, group them. Legal frameworks eliminate, draw in, and give China the upper hand. Fang and Boyle 25. China perfect domestic landscape for invasion influence to the global narratives. Road China wants supporting reduce foreign intervention, delay response, and secession laws, criminalizing your resistance. Yet one China principle that deep ties with partners on the building of this foundation, adopting aggressive posture to normalize the long-lasting operation to legalize the distinction between civilian and military officers, Russian complicated decision making by average and other companies, us intelligence gathering, and Taiwan invasion fuels China nationalization and stabilizing CCP legitimacy. Durago 24. China approach laws about invasion, leverage longer political cycles allow measures on the long game U.S. vision views the new situation, but threat China opportunity to maintain an internal stability vision, strengthen the forces whether the China national security advantage to maintain internal legitimacy. This also link turns this even if we lose the invasion succeeds because it means that China will be more legitimate because the war is going at least somewhat well for them, which means that his legitimacy is stable, so there's no incentive for him to become a democracy. Now the war does succeed, Easton crossable that from above, but there's also 4 other warrants. Each one is sufficient to win. First is system destruction with no 25. Chinese military tools to fresh U.S. military mobilize invested large investments and precision weapons use non-kinetic strikes and destroy critical military systems. Second, evade accomplice with no 25. China can limit the accomplice association with military success, massive conventional innovation, distortion, makers of little time to mobilize. And third is coercion with no 25. Focus on coercion with total nation, not basing use of any facility on the okay, those countries and the governments may yield and force charge opposed to what we functional the nuclear weapons was no 25. Basic nuclear space ever into the tools of motivation, comfort, ocean, costly warriors, policy maker, Balkan with the delay prompt response to U.S. and military innovation war, the Yashi nuclear forces down the nuclear more than 600 wars over the words. The first one included military bombers and missiles. Leaders optimistic that and the Mark Carter optimistic that answers the landing stuff because they can just bomb all of the defensive positions on the beaches, makes it impossible. Politics was linked above it to make it more and the more sustainable. War cannot be sustained. Impact turned above because they can just destroy them outright in the media front from beginning of the war. Now no nuclear risks doesn't assume the U.S. They publicly binded that the U.S. will not go in. Also, they think they have the upper hand, which means they would use a nuke. Trump, this is wrong. Trump will defend Taiwan, Republicans support internal documents and official statement through. Fly 25. Taking super percentage out with the U.S. defending Taiwan, man, highly advocate to better defend Taiwan and most republics the hawkish in China. Taiwan's loudest champions, Mark Carter at champions, go to the advantage China plan. Russia is probably now absent the plan that they failure of the illogical infrastructure causes miscalculation and nuclear use. That's the world. There's 22 evidence dropped now. The advantage China plan does not solve first is the Russian nuclear arsenal and destabilizing brain zone activities. That's the world. There's evidence. Second is it reinforces China's H2AD capabilities. That's prior. Third, they say now Russia and China are proving with subs and cruisers now that send the deficit if we win the revision to the event can't solve. I'll do that. Your revision is empirically true and it's proven by H2AD capabilities in the South China Sea. All offensive revisions are correct. It's empirically proven by those attacks. Their deficits are not going to cut it. Sure, China might want not to go to war, but they're still do it because it's key to power projection. That's a drop internal link from the 1 hour and Russia's revision 2 card is wrong. It's about the context of anti-BMD, which is not the evidence of price in the current Arctic policy. Common and taking out Russian perception of Russian subs, which is in the app. And what's up?
Skip that part. Go to Alaska.
Go to the Alaska counterpoint. Devolution doesn't solve the regionalism. Net benefit is 0. A is all causes of Alaskan economy. Causes and other investments outweigh B's uniqueness. Other evidences about domestic counterpoint are going on the ship and see no impact case. Impacts is through cooperation is tried out for deterrence and other countries are aggressive. Go to the perm. Wait, which one? Extend the perm to both deficits warrant or coherent doesn't link to policies because funding can do the same as the counterplan. That's the short dissent. That's the dissent. There's also not a benefit because they don't get the dissent. Go to the dissent. First. The shutdown is not an opportunity cost to the plan. Fiat occurs when the government reopens, no link to ground. We don't get to re-clarify. The plan is announced now, but it wouldn't pass until the plan opens. Afghan outweighs because they have the block, and the interpretation justifies riders, which is impossible. No Afghan, we only get delayed. Purpose of election, which never happens. The resolution stuff is wrong. They're evidence in the context of the resolution, and more predictable. Should refers to the future. Brown 8. The word should at the phrase look to the future past tense of the child employee a general duty obligation consider possibly future events and should to be uncertain. White 26. Should a design in express uncertainty otherwise the world sometimes does. The next argument they have is reciprocity. This is wrong. Fiat solves because it's durable, not because it's immediate. Severs resolve. Jimmy made a huge mistake. He said the results require legislative. We meet this, but it also takes us out because it can't be certain when it is then the legislative. Now the sudden nature shocks is not no link. Doesn't assume that the reopening in September all the rooms would cool down by then, and the plan isn't sudden shock because the plan is announced now. The court also says nothing. It just says that huge unpopular unexpected things would be bad, but never does not assume the scope of the plan, which is not unpopular. They've not done the work for this, so don't give it to them. The dissent cannot turn case cyber attacks or cannot turn readiness because they're thumped by a billion other things, and they would inevitably also reopen, but does not assume no link, which takes us out. The cannot turn logistics because sure all of our evidence is about like conventional infrastructure. That's what we would build, which is all of our solvency evidence. Do I need anything else?
Yeah.
Go back to what?
The Alaska account.
It's right there. Extend the funding deficit to C2. The counterplan can't solve any infrastructure because of vast geography and harsh conditions. Alaska requires federal aid via particularly the IJJA, currently demonstrated by the Don Young project. That's the AC, and the sheer difficulty of construction does state federal involvement. February 22. Alright, mark it as an analytic.
Cool. 710. Deterrence advantage. Shutdown disad. Alaska counterplan. Advantage counterplan.
Deterrence, shutdown, Alaska advantage.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm good.
Alright, everyone else good?
Democracy outweighs the impact was double chopped by the 2AC and the 1AR. Seriously, impact turns 1-1. Don't just extend your offense. You have to answer ours. Democracy solves every impact, including the case. It's a structural check on conflict because democracies are more inclined toward cooperation and not conflict. There's multiple scenarios that are external, all drop. Climate change, AI, space settlement, all constitution, all require democracy to remedy them. That's Belfield. This is not close. Any defense to Taiwan invasion goes nuclear is sufficient because they have conceded that the plan to sustain the CCP and that causes extinction. This is the definition of try or die. Now that 1AR dropped like 9 cards on the nationalism turn, it's 0-1. Economics, they're way more important than nationalism. Innovation is uniquely devastating. Their 1AC evidence says that invasion would cause Chinese stagnation, which makes the entire public discontent. That's Dash. Do you really think that Chinese people are going to be caring more about historical ties to Taiwan than the campaign for food, water, gas, energy, mortgages, or entertainment? Obviously, they care far more about the economy than wag the dog effect of Xi's leadership. That's the Dash evidence. Now, there's multiple vectors for economic collapse. One is trade. The Taiwan trade's a critical route, which incursion destabilizes the regime and disrupts global trade routes, causes economic stagnation and slow growth. 2 is semiconductors. The F interrupts production, which causes a quick collapse. They've conceded the invasion. It's unpopular with the public, which there for multiple reasons. The broadest posturing about nationalism and the effect that she has is from it's just Chinese posturing. Does not have any reason why the general public would want it, or why elites and people in Xi's regime would also want it. Now regime change. They've also dropped a completely external cooperation scenario. Regime change fosters Sino-American cooperation, which stifles great power competition. That's the Cooper evidence. U.S.-China cooperation. U.S.-China cooperation is key to China nuclear export, escalation and nuclear arms racing, which is a key internally to all 1AC impacts. There's the credit card says it's key to quote a nuclear arms race that quote goes nuclear. Otherwise, that is a completely external scenario. Even if they win the democracy stuff, the nationalism scenario, the app forecloses cooperation between a new CCP regime because they have conceded transition and they've conceded that democratic invasion has first CCP collapse, which is frame the rest of the democracy and the defense debate. Now the defense invasion fails and does not draw on the U.S. advantage counterplan. Obviously, solve this because there's no scenario for U.S. draw. And there are the 4 ways that China wins cards: a 0 with no sense it would counter the U.S. and try to do so. Not that they will succeed. The framing ensures that these cards are highlighted to nothing. You don't really say anything. System destruction lacks a word. Says China might use non-kinetic strikes and that intend to destroy military systems. Not that those things will destroy military systems. Our evidence says that geography and lack of technical capabilities and the Chinese military is so incompetent that it's profoundly illogical that people would be able to invade successfully. Now fait accompli is wrong. If everyone wants to see author in the military has spotted that China's going to invade, that the DoD certainly won't ignore them, especially when they've said Trump wants defense commitments. Now coercion, insurance, don't go nuclear, and other nations aren't drawn in because they aren't stupid. All this is speculative and says that the military could, might, or but only our evidence makes definitive claims why they won't go nuclear. It's also about GPS and ASATs, which happen daily and are non-unique. And Trump defending Taiwan is also solved by the advantage counterplan, which will be low. Drawing in Russia and NATO is wrong, just as Russia has some military equipment from China and that they're bogged down in Ukraine, so they won't attack. Obviously, now the advantage counterplan, it's the shutdown DA can see no link. I'm not going for it. Same for the Alaska counterplan, can see the permanent successful competition. Now the advantage counterplan, it solves the case, it guarantees no draw into Taiwan conflict and builds up arms control, which solves the terminal to any case impact. Use sufficiency, the 1AR did not have any impact to the deficit, so heavily or negative at worst. Judging is logical exchange of condo. Framing issue, the 1AR was very fast and loose on the line by line, so you should not allow new answers. It certainly solves Taiwan war. The 2 rants about how Trump's so-called security commitments will solve are non-unique, made up, and completely solved by fiat. The counterplan has Trump personally decide to never launch a nuclear weapon in Taiwan, so even if he supports it theoretically, the counterplan is durably fiated and guarantees that invasion will never spur U.S. nuclear draw. And they also conceded that it's covert, so there's no scenario for any insurance collapse or any destabilization of the region. Now revisionism is not nearly responsive. Share is the only piece of evidence that goes a step further than theirs. It says that both Russia and China are realist powers that don't want to die, even if that they take over the LAO and support arms control agreements. It means that the U.S. does not have the capacity to nuke them on the turnabout. Now A2AD lacks a terminal impact. Even if China can deny American capabilities, there's no escalation escalation, and Trump means that it will never go nuclear. Say no is illogical. Asserting China evil does not take out the fact that she doesn't want to die. In fact, he will probably welcome arms control until Putin because he'll want to win wars in Taiwan and Ukraine. If America does not have nuclear weapons now, regardless, all this arms control plank, you could judge kick if they win like to that benefit or any kind of permutation. It's irrelevant because our only solvency scenario is about Taiwan war and escalation. So the planks that prevent any sort of draw in the region solve that now. I'll go back and make more defense on the Taiwan war. They dropped they dropped the cross-sticks and their TOI evidence assumes drawing. It doesn't actually say that drawing could happen or has any scenario for happening. And cross-sticks proves in the one you see that it proves there's no scenario. Also, they dropped the Robertson evidence that says that Trump does not care because Taiwan is even though Taiwan is a democracy, Trump has displeasure with Taiwan and struggles to fulfill its defense spending, so he does not have any binding security commitments. But they also dropped the Schumann card that says that there's even the largest amphibious campaign in history will not escalate because a few bases for China to land.
Okay. We have 220. Just request it.
Yeah, I'll just do it. Okay, it's fine. Just do prep. Do you want me to card? Do you want me to card? Do you want to read it? Sure, fine. Some arguments.
Order is deterrence. The turn at the after this minute. And then the damage.
I'm good.
Let me just get my box. Okay. Anyone not good? It is try or die to solve Russian miscalc. I don't care how good the 2NR sounded, it dropped this zero advantage counterplan or defensive posturing. The 2NR did not account for Russian miscalc. Every single time that Russia perceives the US is weak, they will always lash out. Now hidden adversarial capabilities, warships, and defensive doctrines from Russia means that they will always escalate every single time they perceive the US as weak. That causes ambiguous intent and which causes the calculation and increases the risk that the US first strikes or that Russia first strikes. Now the plan solves the impact of the turn. Drop that China strategy. It's A2AD capabilities, which require things like logistical dispersal, which only the plan solves for. The plan mandates logistical planning, which is the only thing that deters aggression and solves for for regime collapse. Now, defense does not assume things like China's policy, which says that there's no room for Taiwan independence. Trump denouncing Macron and kissing up to Xi in Taiwan's electric, which increases the risk of miscalculation because of the belief that they're entitled to aggression, which is inherent in Chinese policy. This all goes strong from the 2 and R, and if we win the China's revisionist, that means that it takes out some risk of the turn and definitely the advantage counterplay. The only thing that we need to win is that invasion causes more aggression and that it spills over. We both have an internal link to China, but it dropped the Russia impact, which should frame the try or die for the debate. Now we link turn China autocracy. Short-term invasion of Taiwan is a major win for Xi in terms of legitimacy. Allows China to spell out global narratives of their success and lets them crack down on resistance via criminalization and anti-cession law. 2, impacts 1, it makes the democratic transition less likely because the opportunity is now to crack down while they have success in Taiwan. And 2 is that it goes nuclear because the gap between civil and military aggression has become obscured in the SES. That's bangable, and now China knows that an invasion would be risky and that they might not win. That does not matter. Our evidence factors is in and conceded every single 1AR card that says that they know that the invasion is all about leverage. Now they have longer political cycles so they can play the long drawn out war without committing anything early on. They can win that initial waves get crushed on the beachhead, but that drives nationalism on the mainland. Only we cite actual Chinese sentiments. I would say dialogue evidence. Frame the evidence to me because all of theirs is Chinese propaganda. Now we'll still win. China wins. Frame strategic deterrence at the top. They have a bunch of conventional nuclear weapons. What now says that nuclear space and cyber would overwhelm and delay critical responses. They can win initial defenses are threatening, but that assumes defenders get to their positions which should be indicted. Now that was the with no evidence. Now the problem with the ecosystem that it to in ours is that it is a blip in their cards and accesses none of our offense. The first card they read is just a blip. It's a bottom paragraph without a warning. So strike it. The second card says that it matters for national security, but it concludes that Xi would become more aggressive because he thinks it's what the public calls the HSU card. Also concludes tonight. It says that Xi would be far more likely to lash out and then to give up because he has zero opportunity cost to escalate. So you don't know what the scenario is for econ escalation. Now they say that it's about public perception. Zero reason in the 2 and R why it implicates Xi's doctrine and Xi escalating. The public has no implication for Chinese doctrine that implicates a term because they will never lash out. Now they say that semiconductors, at least with a quick collapse, so no 2 and R extrapolation about what this impact is, and you know that Russia definitely turns it because every single time they perceive the U.S. as weak, they would always escalate. Now they say that regime change, the Sino-Russian impact, we've link turned this, which was above, so it doesn't matter, and it was not drop. Now they said that the conceded transition spurred CCP collapse. This is wrong. That was a link to above. Plus, if we win that China wins, and that takes us out. Now they say that invasion fails, that there's no capabilities. That was above. Yes, capabilities. That was the line by debate. Now they say that it won't. Now I'll do the defense proper here. They've conceded a couple of pieces of evidence that it definitely implicates this debate. And then Taiwan invasion causes extinction, sparks a catastrophe, and nuclear escalation that draws Washington into conflict. That was the PLA evidence. I'll do the Russia revisionism debate on the advantage counterplan, so go there now. The advantage counterplan can definitely not solve conceded the perm from the 1AR, which means that it's a nuclear for the counterplan because it does not solve for any of the for revisionism in the status quo, which means that it takes out the net benefit. Now conceded 2 key pieces of evidence. One is that Russia believes they are entitled to the Baltics to restore the Soviet Union and topple the current LIO. Rehearsals, Russian Air Force missiles and incursion signal that they are ready and willing to take over. Drop. 2 and R posturing cannot account for this. The only thing that's constraining them is a reverse force of hegemony and deterrence, which only they assholes for. That's a comparative evidence prefer it. It's from an expert in political sciences who analyzes policy. Chunks of evidence. Now 2 is Russia's modernizing now and it's starting to take over Alaska. That was the evidence. It solves all of their alphas because they're only waiting for the U.S. to signal that we will withdraw or that we won't be able to build up our capabilities. Only the affirmative solves that through increasing logistical infrastructure. Now the arms control is wrong. Conceded from the 1AR that it failed structurally. If we win revisionism, then that implicates it because China will never agree to doing an arms control deal because they will want to lash out and they have no incentive to cooperate with the United States. Now, topical framing for the debate dropped the Russia revisionism, which means that should implicate the turn.
Good bit.